What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Movement6. Before we start, huge thank you to everybody who subbed in the last few days. It's a privilege to have you on the channel. If you're new here, drop a like, subscribe, hit those notifications buttons. You know the drill, and welcome to the channel. For me, Horizon Zero Dawn was the winner, if you will, of the previous generation. You know, PS5, Xbox Series X, and now the current generation. And with the previous generation, PlayStation 4 in particular here, for me, Horizon Zero Dawn was the winner of the generation. But opinions may vary on that. That's fine. Others would say God of War, but the reason why I'm tied into Horizon Zero Dawn, it's a fresh new IP. It's fresh. It's new. It's not a reimagination or anything. It's fresh, new. The story was great. The gameplay mechanics, the RPG, and how deep the RPG goes was spot on for me. I like the environment, the universe they created. So yeah, I've spent hours and hours in this game, and I replayed it already 4 or 5 times. I've even started now playing on PC with the enhancements in frame rate and resolutions tied into that. So yeah, for me, Horizon Zero Dawn was a game I was highly anticipated to see a sequel from, and now we have Horizon Forbidden West. For me, it was always tied into the PlayStation 5, so to the new generation, the current generation, if you will. But I do understand that it's going to be a cross-generation game. I'm not too fond of that because that means that they need to find a middle ground to even make it run on 7 or 8 year old hardware, the PlayStation 4, the base PlayStation 4. Of course, the PlayStation 4 Pro will be able to pour out checkerboarding 4K, putting it down to a 30 frames per second, and hopefully it doesn't drop below that because the ambitions are high, of course. So for me, as I said in the previous video on Horizon Forbidden West, it's about PlayStation 5, the new generation. This game should be made solely for PlayStation 5, so they don't have to take into account that this also needs to run on a PlayStation 4. I'm just peeking to my OBS Streamlabs to see if it's still working. But there are differences because it's going to be cross-gen, of course. So let's just dive into the differences we see on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. Well, I always say Horizon Zero Dawn Forbidden West. It's Horizon Forbidden West, of course, PS4 and PS5 differences. So, first of all, a small disclaimer here. I got this from a Discord environment, so Discord server I'm a member of. I couldn't track back anymore for some reason who I got this from. Of course, the points mentioned here are just general points. You can find them everywhere. But the whole layout and I couldn't find the one who to give credit, and I really liked the layout, so I just took it. And if somebody could just drop in the comment if you know who this is or is it you, then I'm more than happy to give the credits to you in the video description. Now, PS5 version supports a 60 frames per second performance mode. Okay, fine. So the first thing I'm seeing here is that we once again have two modes with a game. It's a performance mode, which is really aimed on frames per second, and we will have a resolution or a visual or a graphic mode, which then targets 4K. And this is immediately my problem with the current generation, the PlayStation 5. Just a few weeks ago, I saw an advertisement on Facebook from Sony. Sony was pushing their OLED Bravia 4K TVs, and they were stating, if you want to experience a PlayStation 5 running on 4K with 120 frames per second, you need to have a Sony Bravia TV. So my comment below that was, Sony claims that a PlayStation 5 is able to pour out 4K natively on a stable 120 frames per second, which is not true. It's absolutely not even close to the truth. It's just lying. It's not marketing. It's lying. Even Ratchet and Clank can only pour out a 4K when it lowers its frames per second to 30 frames per second. If you want to reach 60 frames per second on a Ratchet and Clank for the PlayStation 5, you need to drop down to a little bit over 1080p. So, and this is my biggest problem with with the new generation or the current generation, is that for some weird reasons we still have impact left and right in terms of frames per second. And also in this game, no doubt that if you are going to target visualization mode or the 4K mode, that your frame rate drops to 30. So in that sense, if you aim on visuals, then there is no difference with the PlayStation 4 Pro for the naked eye. You know, 99% of everyone playing this game is not an expert in seeing the exact resolution and how we got there with checkerboarding or native or any other technique out there to giving you the idea that's 4K, right? So a PlayStation 4 Pro checkerboards the hell out of it and reaches 4K, and your PlayStation 5 reaches 4K. But no doubt on a PlayStation 4, this game is going to run natively on 30 frames per second. Full stop. and that's my biggest problem here. I really wanted to experience this one on the PlayStation 5. I had my hopes. I don't have a PlayStation 5 yet, but I really had my hope that it was a game that was solely tied to the PlayStation 5 and really would be squeezing out the last drop of performance in terms of frames per second and resolution. Not you need to choose, no, both. And that's not the case here. So you need to choose again. PS5 version supports the 60 frames per second performance mode. Okay. Fine. PS5 version features 3D audio and DualSense features. Okay, those are really tied into the PlayStation 5. The jump from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 in terms of audio wasn't great. It was still the same. Of course, it has Dolby, but that's about it. 3D audio seems to be really amazing, and DualSense as well. I didn't really got my hands on it that long enough to actually experience it in full, but this is a PS5 feature. PS5 uses cinematic grade lighting system. PS4 can only use in cutscenes. Okay, this is what I understood. This is the glow you see around Eloy when she's walking around, and of course you will have the ray tracing options throughout the world. The question is, did I actually miss these things? Now on the PlayStation 4, no. But okay, it looks great. So it means that we do have an impact there on PlayStation 4 if you're going to experience this. PS5 version has a special rendering technique for underwater scenes. Okay, fine. So the special rendering technique will be gone. I'm just curious, just then also send out a demo on how this would look like on PlayStation 4. Is it all of a sudden really bad? Does it look like shit? I don't think so. So I'm just really curious now how this rendering technique differs from a PlayStation 4. Just give us some insights here, Gorilla. There is no reason to hold back on that, right? PS4 version should be largely identical beyond performance and graphics. Largely identical beyond performance and graphics. So performance and graphics seems to differ, which is weird because as far as I know, my PlayStation 4 Pro pours out 4K. Whether or not we're going into detailed discussion on whether it's checkerboarding or not, and PlayStation 5 has native 4K, 99% of the consumers will not see the difference. It's 4K, and my TV also handles it as 4K. And of course, fantastic guys from Digital Foundry would analyze the hell out of it and show you that there is a difference in graphics. But in the performance side on the PlayStation 5, I contest this, because if I look at the first point, PS5 version supports a 60 frames per second performance mode. So that means that it is natively 30 frames per second. And that is exactly the frames per second my PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 4 Pro is going to pour out. So I think this is pretty weak marketing. PlayStation 4 version should be largely identical. If they say largely identical, what do they mean in terms of the size of the world? Are there areas it doesn't have because it's going to be too big? What is largely identical beyond performance and graphics? It's the most vaguish what you can say. So this means that this PlayStation 4 version is not identical. It is not. Some largely identical is not identical. It is absolutely not. It's horseshit. And in performance modes, okay, it pours out natively 4K. Base PlayStation 4 is not going to reach that. The PlayStation 4 Pro does it via checkerboarding. There was a graphics. The performance in terms of 30 frames per second, as far as I can see in the first point, it runs natively on 30 frames per second if you choose graphical modus. But if you want performance, so 60 frames per second, then you will have an impact on resolution. So on 60 frames per second, it might well be that my PlayStation 4 Pro has a higher resolution. So these nitty-gritty details doesn't really give me a lot of confidence that this is going to be the right path to take. I must say, I'm not a big fan of these cross-gen things. I get it from a business standpoint, because let's face it, there are more PlayStation 4s out there than PlayStation 5s. And if we look at the logistics and the stocks available, that's going to take some time for these guys to manage that and make sure that we can all fly into a PlayStation 5. They want to have this business model good. You need to spread it out, but they need to make choices, and they need to find a middle ground, because it needs to run on A and B, and A is 8 years old hardware even. PlayStation 4 Pro a little bit less, but in architecture mostly the same. So these are the main differences we have in between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 Horizon Forbidden West. I'm super excited for this game. I really want to play this on the PlayStation 5. I don't think I'm going to get my hands on it somewhere in the foreseeable future. So it might well be that I'm going to enjoy this on my PlayStation 4 Pro. But I do urge Gorilla to just say what they mean with largely identical. Beyond performance and graphics. So throw performance and graphics out of the window. And then we're having a game that should be largely identical. Okay, what does this mean, please? Are you excited for this game, guys? Where are you going to play it on? PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5? Are you a lucky bastard? Drop down in the comments. I'm really anxious to see what you guys have to tell me. For now, I'll be back to you shortly. Enjoy the weekend, and I'm going to watch some Formula 1.